Man, I'm really in a mood. I had to put the blue on. Keep it cool. I usually don't even do live videos like this time of night. So I have no idea. People are used to using me doing my stuff in the afternoon. So I might not even have anybody watch this, and that's okay. It might not be worth listening to me today. I'm just I'm in a mood and I thought I would just go live. So this is, first of all, most of my stuff is unscripted to a degree. Like I just have a couple of things that I'm going to put up that I can show on the screen, or if I'm going to a video, but I largely just shoot from the hip, straight Billy the Kid, the Young Guns. I just shoot from the hip every time. So this will be one that's really unscripted. I was watching this thing about Caitlyn Clark and, this discussion on race. And I saw something that happened yesterday on Facebook. And so I'm in the mood to just talk about this real quick. I'm probably not going to talk as long as I normally do. And you don't, as always, you don't have to agree with me. This is just my perspective. But first things first, welcome to CNN. I'm Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. And if you are the Christian tradition, you know that tomorrow's not promised, but the day of the Lord is, and that's a future day. So we remember the future right there, right there, right there. And we are on the road to 5K. So if you appreciate what I do here, thank you. Thank you. Some of you proved that. Thank you. By December 31st, I'm trying to get to 5K. That's the hope. So that's a lot to cover. This is end of May. We're about to hit halfway mark. So like and subscribe, let people know. All right, let's jump into this. As you can see, I'm in the athletic gear. I'm getting stronger. All right. Let's have this conversation. And again, I'm shooting from the hip. I won't even go live normally this type of day. But I'm in the mood to. And let me tell you why. And again, you clicked on. So here's the thing. So yesterday I was on Facebook, and when you go on like Facebook, however the algorithms work, they just work, right? I don't even care at this point. I know that the algorithms typically, they either, at least on Facebook, I think the algorithms work differently upon channels. If you go to YouTube and you watch one video, you're going to get tons of videos by that person or by that topic. And that's just how the algorithm works. It's just they just want to suck you in. It's almost like the algorithm is like the enemy, just trying to suck you in and be distracted by endless videos of a topic. You accidentally hit a video, you're going to get 30 suggestions to watch the same kind of video from the same person. All right, so I was on Facebook yesterday, though, and it was interesting because I saw a random post with a music clip in it, and it was by Hazakim. Hazakim, dope Christian rap artist, good brothers, man. Me and one half of Hazakim, Tone Stallone, we actually started Cross Examine like 6 years ago. I had a desire to talk about hip hop and culture within the Christian community that wasn't going on. And so we started Cross Examine. We did one season together, and then me and Strack came on, and me and Strack did all of them. And we'll be back in the fall for Cross Examine. We just needed to step back and do some things. So I was on Facebook, and Hazakim had an audio clip of Voddie Baucham talking. It was his book Fault Lines that he wrote in 2002, which was essentially a pushback. I think it was deemed as a biblical pushback, but if I'm being honest, I read the book and wrote a review for it for the Gospel Coalition, but it was too much for them, so I just put it out myself, and it got a ton of people looked at this review of the book. I debated Voddie Baucham and Tim Brindle at a conference in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We had a great time, man. I think they're great dudes. We disagreed on some things, but a lot of stuff I agreed with them. I agreed with some of the stuff they said, I think, which caught them off guard, because I think they thought I was just a woke leftist. There was going to be Black Lives Matter, until they realized I didn't support or celebrate those women. They were witches. They said they were witches. I mean, I'm not saying that as trying to say the B word with a W. No, they said they were witches. They worship spirits and stuff. I was like, I don't bang with them. So, but he wrote this book, Fault Lines. And so apparently Tim Brindle, who was once a very popular Christian rap artist under the guise of Lamp Mode, who was discipled by Shai Lin, who's not really rapping as much anymore, but is still popular in people's minds. There was an audio clip of Voddie talking about the same cultural Marxism and the church and this and that stuff. And then you heard at the end, Tim Brindle start rapping, and you realize, oh, wow, they're turning Fault Lines into a book. Now, Fault Lines it's supposed to be a biblical pushback, but if I'm being honest, it was a conservative political pushback to the cultural Marxism, because its primary theologian was Thomas Sowell. It wasn't biblically based. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges with the whole race conversation within the church, whether you were on the left, Black Lives Matter set, or the right, whatever side you were on, there was not a lot of Bible used. There wasn't. It was a lot of political, theological, like if you were on the right critiquing the left, your main point was not that it's not biblical, it was that it's Marxist and you're trying to destroy the fabric of the country. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm an American, I was born here, I got 3 teenage boys down the hallway. I want them to grow up and live a certain lifestyle too, but I've never felt like my job is to preserve the Constitution or the other governing Trinitarian documents, the Bill of Rights and the Declaration. While I'm grateful for those things, ultimately, the Bible is my constitution. I got 66 books, and my Bible tells me in 2 Timothy 3:12, indeed, all who desire to live a godly life will be persecuted. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right, you're going to be persecuted. When Revelation talks about all of the whole earth is controlled by the enemy and they rise up against the saints, I don't think it's going to be just the left and not the right. I think it's going to be anyone who does not legitimately belong to Jesus is going to eventually hate all of the people that are legitimately connected to Jesus. I just think it's a given. So I don't really care about if you're conservative or liberal. What I care about is who is Jesus to you and how does that affect the way you see everything. So one of the downfalls of the whole race debate of the last 10, 12 years within the evangelical church was that it wasn't really biblically based. A lot of the people who were calling out racism within the broader white evangelical context were more calling it out from the standpoint of you're not speaking up enough against the injustices against what's happening to black people, and particularly with law enforcement. And that was a new thing. I mean, if you were white, you were like, where's this coming from? I watched a lot of relationships get torn apart because of this. And if you were on the right, it wasn't like you were biblical either. You were really more conservative in trying to preserve the cultural dynamic. And then it became about all this stuff, right? So I watched all this happen. So when Voddie Baucham wrote Fault Lines, Voddie Baucham has always been, I think, for the conservative side, sort of a champion. He's a very articulate dude. The fact that he's black, because it pushes back against the narrative of that black people have about racism and their understanding of the country. He's from South Central, and he used that to his advantage in the book. So I read Fault Lines, did a review on it. I thought it was, if you like Voddie Baucham, you're going to love the book. If you like truth, you'll get some stuff out of it, but it really was not based in biblical truth. It used some Bible verses, but a lot of it was very anecdotal. And like I said, Thomas Sowell was the main theologian. I'm not saying this out of hate. I like a good book. I like, there was stuff I liked about it. But when I saw the album, I posted, I said, wow, they still milking this cow, huh? And I was genuinely surprised because I don't think about that stuff anymore. I mean, you guys, if you follow this channel, every once in a while, I'll cover something related to race. But I usually push back again, like the recent stuff about Caitlyn Clark, my video. I just don't care about it. Let me tell you what I honestly believe. When Ephesians 6, when Paul said this, when I really thought about this one day, I realized how superficial these race debates are. And everyone race baits. I don't care what you say. And I'm going to say something that may tempt some people in terms of, because I don't know people's motives, but I'm going to say it now so I don't forget. I personally, the reason why I wondered, why are they doing an album about, Voddie Baucham doesn't even like rap, but it's almost like that's a popular book for him. I know that he's a traveling pastor. He lives in Africa, but I think he gets his income from being on the circuit and traveling and preaching. And this idea of race and it's almost like the fear mongering of what the culture would do. Like I felt like from on the left side, if you were like on the Black Lives Matter side talking about race, as a believer, I felt like a lot of your angles were more anger and resentment for what hasn't happened to your satisfaction. And if you were on the right, the conservative side, a lot of your perspective was based on fear. Oh no, the left is gonna try to make us believe this, and they're gonna come into our schools and do this and do all of this, despite the fact that Jesus said, the gates of hell will not prevail. I didn't hear anyone say, calm down, calm down. Even if the left wins, President Biden has been president, which I still can't figure out. How is Biden president? And how is he running for president again? And then how is Trump? How are we in the same place again 4 years later with the same two people? It is clearly the judgment of the Lord. I don't know what you think. And if you're offended at that, I'm sorry. I can't believe that these are the same two dudes running for president. You got one dude who doesn't even know where he is half the time, and another dude who only lies slightly less than Satan. It's amazing to me. And these are the people running for president. But this is what I think. I digress. You can feel differently, right? So, but I feel like this book, the album is really not about. I feel like it's. I think, and again, I haven't heard the album, but I've heard someone who has heard the album, and they had some concerns that they shared with me just yesterday. They shared with me concerns about the album and some of the songs that are on it and what they're intended to say and do. And I just thought, man, I think it's fear. I think what the conservatives do is scare you into thinking that you're going to lose the country, as if God isn't sovereign. And then you got the left was more angry at sort of wanting what they haven't received yet, whether it's reparations or whatever, right? That was how I saw it. So when I read Paul say, and I studied this because I was doing a series called The Supernatural Storyline recently, but I thought about this when Paul said, we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, is Ephesians 6:12. For we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but against the principalities, authorities, the rulers of this age. And he listed this cosmic evil hierarchy, right? From fallen angels, from Satan to fallen angels to demons. And he listed and said, listen, we're not wrestling with flesh and blood. This is not a flesh and blood. So when that happened for me, I developed a mantra called stay balanced. I'm going to stay balanced because I believe this verse right here, you expose the deeds of darkness. I do not think the deeds of darkness are only on the left. I think the right has deeds of darkness too. And I want to stand in the middle because I don't want to stand before the Lord and be like, I sinned against fellow believers, against my brother because he had a different political philosophy. But I didn't feel like that was taken a lot. Now people are starting to understand and appreciate that about me. But for years I took a hit. I lost friends and people stopped following because I wasn't 100% agreeing with either of them. So I feel like when I saw this, I was like, wow, they're really milking this cow. And the dude was like, man, say what you're really trying to say. And I was like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like, I don't know you. Like, why are you telling me to say what I'm really trying to say? I don't fake. I don't pretend. If I was really surprised, like, oh, wow, they're still trying to go at this, right? I didn't think people were even talking about this. And I had other people get to me and be like, bro, I feel the same way. I think it's just a dead horse, to be honest. And not that the left doesn't have an agenda, but the right has an agenda. I mean, I've talked about this in previous videos. And then, so all of this is happening. So I feel like, okay, they're going to drop this album on fault lines to draw attention back. But what is it really going to accomplish? Like, what is it really going to, we live in a fallen world, and I don't understand why believers, particularly in America, why we act like we need to restore some semblance of biblical morality. That's not what the gospel is. Jesus said, go make disciples, not change laws. And let me explain what I'm trying to say, because people always judge you because they're so offended, because everyone thinks you have to care and be so afraid of losing the nation. We should be persecuted. 2 Timothy 3:12 says, all who desire to live a godly life. That means that laws we're not going to pay. That means they're going to force us to agree with world systems. Of course, they're going to try to groom our children. Of course, this is the enemy. We're talking about Satan. And I think my concern for Voddie, Baucham, and everyone on the other side is that you're making this a flesh and blood issue, and you're missing Paul's point. There isn't. Do you know why? Remember in Genesis 3, right? 14 and 15, after Adam and Eve bite the fruit, and then God shows up and says to Adam, what have you done? And he says, it was a woman. It was the woman you gave me, and she bit the fruit. And the woman said, Eve said it was the serpent. He deceived me, right? And so God says in verse 14, he says to the actual being, the serpent itself, he says, because you've done this, cursed are you above all livestock. So he talks directly to the actual animal that let Satan inhabit it. Now, let me tell you why I think he said that. And this would be one of those, they lied to us videos. Let me tell you why I think he said that. When it said in Genesis 3:1, for the serpent is more crafty than all the other beasts of the field that the Lord God has made, right? That's how that starts off. Let me tell you what I think is happening there. Some people would say, well, it was a supernatural being. I don't think so. The serpent in scripture is a seraphim. And a seraphim are these beings that have 6 wings. 2 cover their eyes, 2 fly, and 2 cover their feet. So their eyes and feet are covered because God is so holy, they can't look at him or their feet being in his presence, right? Their feet is why the angel of the Lord told Moses in Exodus 3, take off your sandals, you on holy ground. You can't even wear shoes around here, right? So these seraphim they're snakes. They're upright snakes, vertical snakes that fly around saying, holy, holy, holy. I believe that God made a replica, because a lot of what happens on earth, you talk about the temple, a lot of the things we understand are they're typological, right? There's a type, they're a foreshadowing of what happens in heaven. Scripture's already said that hand over fist. So I think he made a seraphim, which is a serpent that represented the being in the presence of God, and Satan somehow convinced that being to let him inhabit it and be used to tempt Adam and Eve, right? So he says to the serpent in Genesis 3:14, he says, because you've done this, cursed are you above all livestock. You will now go on your belly. So we see snakes as being on the ground, tongue out, eating dust. But that only happened because the serpent allowed the devil to inhabit it to deceive Adam and Eve. But then he said in verse 3:15, talking to Satan, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring, right? So God will speak in these ways to creatures, to the actual being, and then the being behind the being, right? And so when Paul is saying we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, like we understand that he means that yes, human beings are evil, do evil, but there's a cosmic reality behind all of it. And I felt like in the whole racism debacle from the left, the Black Lives Matter side, and from the conservative side, that they made it all about flesh and blood. Your flesh and blood, your brother is your enemy if you do not agree, if he does not agree or she does not agree with your political philosophy. Because it became about, the gospel became about saving this country from the left or making this country recognize racism against the right, right? That's what it became about. There was no gospel in it. There wasn't about salvation. And if you really look at the gospel, the Bible is not about imposing the morality of God on the world. I mean, if you take the Old Testament as an example, God said this, I'm making you all like this. I don't want you to interact with those people, right? I don't want you to go in because, first of all, you're not mature enough. If you go in and interact with them, you're going to worship their gods. You're going to marry their children. You're going to give them you're not mature enough. So stay away from them unless you go to war with them and you take captives. And that's exactly what happened. Well, now we have the gospel and the Great Commission where I mean, real quick, in the Old Testament, the only time you really see evangelism happen is the book of Jonah. That's it. And Jonah didn't even want to do it, right? That's the only time you see it. He saved the whole nation, the Ninevites, which are modern day Iraqis, right? So now you get the New Testament, go and make disciples. And let me tell you what's happened to America, which is why we're in this stupid place over this conversation about race. What we've done is turn go make disciples into go make converts, right? And this is why the once saved, always saved question is out there. Discipleship, like think about Jesus had disciples. Jesus didn't make converts, he made disciples. When you're a disciple, you follow. They spent 3 years with Jesus. Even Paul said, I did 3 years in Arabia getting my gospel from the Lord, right? So when you become a disciple of Jesus, you follow him. You spend time with them, and you spend time with the people who spend time with him, right? That's what happens in Acts 2:42-47. It said they listened to the apostles' teaching. They broke bread together. They did the prayers together, which were reciting the Psalms, right? They share with whatever. There was a community. But what America, what we've done is we've made converts. Let's go out and preach. And then if you accept Jesus, that's it. Thank you. You're saved. Let's go. But there's no discipleship. And because we've treated the gospel like let's make converts instead of disciples, where we're spending time with these people, we're helping these people grow. What we've done is we've think, okay, once you make a profession of faith, that's it, you're saved. That is not it biblically. The Bible presumes that if you make a profession of faith, you're going to persevere in that. If you don't persevere in it, that profession doesn't matter. So there is no such thing as once saved, always saved, unless you define what you mean by saved. If you mean by saved, I made a profession of faith when I was 11, but I haven't been tripping off of it for the longest time. No, you're not saved to God. The Bible presumes you're going to persevere to the end. The disciples, when they baptized people, they didn't say, hey, come back in a year after we observe your life. Let's see if there's fruit. No, they baptized you right away. You could have been in a sinful situation, but they baptized you because they said your faith in being baptized should lead to a changed life. Well, in America, we've created this context where it's like we make converts, not disciples. And because now we don't know how to make disciples, what we think discipleship now means is changing laws and protecting the country, trying to make the country as biblical as possible. Now think about this. The majority of politicians in America are unregenerate. They're not believers. They may have values that are closer to us than maybe the left, but they're not believers. The vast majority of them do not profess Christ. And if they do it around election time so they can get reelected, right? They don't. So essentially, we're fighting with other genuine believers over which unbelievers are going to benefit our country more. Now, don't get me wrong. There are standards and things. I think there are law. Yes. But I think the problem is we think in America, many people think that in order to glorify God, we have to change the laws and force people to do them. And if you get rid of every law, if you get rid of a woman's right to choose, if you get rid of all sexual alphabet community laws, you get rid of every law that you think is bad, it will not lead to anyone being converted. Jesus said, make disciples, not change laws and make people submit to them, because the law didn't work for the Jews in the Old Testament, and that was God's law. Why do we think man's law is going to do it? We're the dumbest believers in the world. We just think we're going to change laws and that's going to solve everything because we don't know how to do community. We don't know how to do disciples anymore. That's why that's why Satanism and witchcraft is getting more conversions than ever, and people are bold because they're discipling people and people are believing them. We're trying to change laws. So I'm saying all this to make a broader point. I think this whole discourse on race, and this is where Caitlyn Clark comes in. I like watching this girl play. I just did a video on this a couple days ago. She's one of my favorite players to watch. And it's not because she has pretty plivers. I don't even actually think, personally, I don't think she's attractive. That's just that's beauty's an eye beholder. I'm an ugly dude myself, but I got game. But I think I like watching her shoot because she'll pull up from the logo and bank a three. Right? I talked about this in a couple videos, so I don't want to reiterate that. But I enjoy watching her play. But there's all this talk that that she's getting sponsorships and things that black players who have been more skilled longer and stuff at her are not getting. And so there's this race conversation again. And so here you got Voddie's going to drop Fault Lines, the album, or Tim Brindle is, and they're going to bring this race conversation back, this cultural Marxism back. They're trying to milk that cow, and that's fine. You do whatever you want. And then you have this other conversation where I had to tell my kids something real quick. That was smooth. Well, that was, y'all didn't even know what happened. That was smooth. You got this other conversation where it's like, where there's race and all this stuff. And here's what I would want to say. Like, what do you expect, America? Like, we're such a fickle nation. Like, what do you expect, America? Like, you cannot have a country that is only a few hundred years old and the majority of your country be about withholding the particular, the freedom for a group of people. Just come here, just put it down, come on. Put it right here. Right here. That's my oldest, that's my dude right there. This is a video I'm live right now. I'm live, baby. That's how we do it. So you got this country where racism has been the main thing. And it's actually the greatest racist color is green. And this is what I mean. Like, when we talk about all this stuff, there is just this sense that, like, hey, we consider theologically that, hey, we're already and not yet. Like, we're on our way, but we're not fully there yet, and we're in this place and all of this, right? But we act like that's race or whatever you want to call it, favoritism, whatever you want. We act like that we've arrived on that issue, so we shouldn't talk about this. It's just not true. All issues are worthy to talk about if they're present, because sin still exists, and it will exist until the Lord says, all right, it's a wrap. Now, one of the challenges, I think, is that, and ironically, this verse is not what the American church historically has been about. This verse right here says, for he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility. All right. In reality, we keep putting the wall of hostility back up. We build that bad boy right back up all the time. And there's not a sense of unity. That's why you have Galatians 3, like, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither slave nor free. There is no male or female, for you all one in Christ, right? In the same way that slave owners would want their slaves to convert, but then they wouldn't treat them that way, we're doing the same thing with this stuff. Like, here's the reality, brothers and sisters. I don't care what your political philosophy is. You cannot prove to me from the Bible, not from your conviction, not from what this person said of that, from the scriptures. You cannot prove to me that Democrats will not be in heaven, that Republicans will not be in heaven, that people who didn't vote will not be in heaven. You just can't prove that. And I feel like we have been deceived by the enemy, right? To think that, one, this is about flesh and blood. Two, that the greatest thing we need to do is protect our country. Man, we don't know that. Do you know that many of the things that we value in America have distracted us from obeying God? Entertainment, the pursuit of money, the desire for status. I mean, our gods aren't statues that we bow down to. They're desires. They're subs and likes and follows and retweets, and it's all this stuff. And like, it has no value in the eternal kingdom. And so, like, I don't know what Fault Lines, the album, is going to sound like, but I'm almost positive it's going to be divisive, in the sense that it's just going to challenge and push back. And I know of apparently one song that's going to call out someone that's just divisive to me. Like, call that brother on the phone and talk to him. Why are you going to put out a song on an album saying negative things about what you perceive to be his worldview on race? How is that? What fruit of the Spirit is that? And this is why I'm glad to stay balanced. And this is why I think all of this stuff, I think America is foolish. And here's the thing that we've done. We've made race we've made race a black and white and not green. We've made class, that doesn't matter. That's in India and the Hindu caste system. No, it's this. If you have money, that's what people want. They want money so they can be above the laws like everyone else. But in a country of free market capitalism, their bottom line is to make money. In all honesty, and here's the honest truth, and I said this in another video, I'm just going to say this about this with Caitlyn Clark. She is a fascinating player to watch. Even if it's because she's white and or you think she's pretty. It doesn't matter. If in this country that is about money, companies are trying to make money. If they think they cannot make money from you, they don't care how talented you are. They don't care if you're the 2 or 3-time world champion. If they do not think that they can make money from you, they're not going to invest in you. It doesn't matter how much. And this is what people don't realize. This Caitlyn Clark thing is not primarily about race. It's about money. Now, I think race could be involved, sure. And her sexuality, sure. Honestly, I don't think many people are excited to watch a bunch of lesbians play basketball. I'm sorry. It's just the reality. I just don't think a lot of people are gung-ho. I know guys, we're not just like, hey, let's go watch some. That's just not it. Men are lustful. We're attracted to women, and we want to watch and support things of women that are attractive to us. And if you're just not, we're not going to watch it. We're not going to watch it. For some reason, basketball is the one sport that you just got a lot of these women are masculine, and men are attracted to it. So they just don't watch them. There's tons of women in the world. Women don't even support it, right? The stadiums could be filled with women every game, but they're not. It wasn't until Caitlyn Clark came that these stadiums are selling out. So even though there are people better than Caitlyn Clark in the league, people like watching her play because she lit them up in college. She was incredible. 2 steps over half court, shooting it like it was nothing. We haven't seen that since Steph Curry. It was incredible. It's like, golly, that's what people care about. But if companies don't think you're going to be worth their money, it's not about racism. It's just like no one was watching the NBA that much. It's been around for 25, 26 years. And they've sold out maybe a couple times. Caitlyn Clark is selling out stadiums everywhere she goes because people want to see this girl pull from deep. Even the opposing teams that want their team to win, they cheer when they hear her smack a 3 because it's just fun to watch her do it. So again, pardon me because I'm ranting, but I'm glad that for me in my house, I am over and beyond this. I think focusing on race is too superficial. And I'm not saying this self-righteously because I know some people are really lathered up about it and they really care about it. But let me just tell you this, Voddie, Tim Brindle, anyone who's on the left, racism is superficial. It's just not it's superficial. Everything is not about that. And you do not have to all agree on political philosophies. You just don't. What we have to agree on is biblical truth, not political truth. And you'll never agree on political truth. We won't even all agree on biblical truth, but at least we have an eternal foundation. I think this Fault Lines album is going to flop. It's going to flop because you know why? At the end of the day, I think it's just going to cause division. I think these arguments about Caitlyn Clark, it's all about race and people support, they're just going to flop. Because at the end of the day, like people just don't care, man. I think, 10, 15 years ago, that was the theme. That was the world conversation. Racism, this and that. Now we just listen. We move on, man. We move on. We just move on. And I know if it's still important to you, hey, that's you. And I'm sorry, it's not important to me in the same way. I'll cover it from time to time. Like I'm doing it now, obviously, right? But we move on. I think as a believer in modern day Christianity, I think focusing on race and who's going to win the presidential election and what that will mean, I think is just superficial. I think it's just like, man, this is the time where we gird our loins and press into what the Bible actually says. When's the last time you were like, you know what? I'm going to read the Bible and memorize scripture just because I want to please God. When's the last time you just said, you know what? It's 8:30, 9 o'clock. I want to spend time with the Lord. When's the last time you just said, you know what? That's the priority. When's the last time you just said, I'm going to do something just because I want to please the Lord? It's always, well, I'm tired. I'm this, I'm that. It's often that. And I think like, man, you give God this little bit of time and you want all this time in eternity. And I think a lot of people are just going to be shocked. The Lord is not a sucker, man. He's not a simp. The Lord is not sitting there like a hopeless romantic, just glad that you thought about him today. The Lord said, I'm a jealous God. People going to do stuff for me and they're not even going to make it. And I think right now, this is not the time to be focusing on race and Marxism and who's gay and what laws are they going to pass and all who desire to live a godly life will be persecuted. Live a godly life. Let's just be persecuted. Don't get me wrong. I ain't saying we live in a country where you can vote. Vote your conscience. Vote your conscience. But man, don't lose your conscience for a vote. This stuff is just dumb. It's dumb. I think Caitlyn Clark is about race. It's dumb. No, she's smacking them things. That's what it's about. Smacking them things. This girl scored the most points in NCAA history, men or women. Oh, but it's about race and her sexuality? No, she's smacking them things, fam. That's what it's about. I was watching her play last night. I actually watched her play more than the NBA Western Conference Finals. After that game, I was like, oh, that game's on. I went and man, she was smacking them joints. She dropped 30 points yesterday, smacking them. It's fun to watch. All this other stuff about race in the church, man, get over it, Slim. I'm sorry. This dude responded to me, you say what you really mean, bro. And then we went back and forth with me and pulling up all these old videos. I said, fam, it's clear that this still means something to you, but it just doesn't to me. Keep pulling those old videos up, fam. You're killing it. Race and all that stuff is so racism, all that is so superficial to me. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm not saying that in some senses it shouldn't be out there, but it's a flesh and blood issue that we have to look behind it. What's spiritual warfare really looking like right now for us? What is spiritual warfare really looking like to you? Are you hip? Do you know what spiritual warfare looks like? Do you know what the enemy's plan is, how he's deceiving you? Or are you so focused on what politics, what celebrity is this, who's racist, who doesn't agree with my view on race? I just think, man, when Jesus said, and I'm going to end with this, when Jesus said in Matthew 5, if you say to your brother Raka, which means you fool, he said you are liable to the fire of hell. He said you can't even say you fool to a person unless you're liable to go to hell. Man, there be people saying crazy stuff. And I've done it too. I've said it before. I had to ask for forgiveness sometimes to people and then to myself. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Because my focus is on bearing the fruits of the Spirit. And let me be emphatic when I say this. And you can dislike this. You can unfollow me and all that. I don't care about saving the country. I care about saving souls in the country. I care about saving my kids' souls being saved. God's sovereign over the country. I don't care about it. I don't care who's president. I don't care what laws they pass because this is not my final home. Now, I'm not saying you have to be like me. If you have a conviction to vote conservative, vote it. If you have a conviction to vote liberal, vote it. What I'm saying is do not impose your conviction on other people. Romans 14. I don't care, fam, if Trump is the president and what he'll do because he can't do anything that the Lord doesn't allow him to. When Jesus told Pilate in John 19:11, you would have no authority over me unless it were given you from above. I think that extends to our political science today. So I'm just, whatever, fam. I know this is an election year and people are going to flip out and Christians are so afraid of they're grooming our children. And I get it, fam. Man, but what if the Lord wants that to happen because people are more dependent on laws than they are on prayer? What if the Lord is like, I want y'all on your knees. I want you crying out to me. If I change these laws for your favor, you're just going to sit back and coast like we won. Won what? Won what? You got a pathological liar like Trump in the White House and you're selling Bibles with the Constitution in it and that's not sacrilegious to you? You got Joe Biden who does, we don't even know who his VP would be. That was a shuck and jive move to get Kamala Harris to come in there. She was the first main person out of the presidential campaign when she was running for president against Biden. You brought her in as the first woman of color. She said she wasn't black and then was celebrating being black after she got in there. What a hustle. These people aren't believers. They don't care about the things you care about if you're a Christian. And you're going to argue with other believers over which unbelievers are better suited to help us enforce our philosophy as believers. Man, oh man. Listen. Don't pee on me and tell me it's raining, because I know the difference. Now, you don't have to agree with nothing I said. This is how I feel. This is a rant. I just think, I don't care who's the president. I care, though, if I'm focused, no matter who the president is. I care if my church is trying to honor Jesus. Whoever the president is. I care if my children are. I care if you are. I don't care who you vote for. I care who you believe in. And that's what we all should. But what do I know? What do I know? I need to get my dreads done eventually. All right, let's go to the tape. Let's go to the tape. La Rosa, what's good, baby? What's what? Somebody said, Kurt, you already battled Voddie and Timmy for y'all at it again? Nah, I'm not battling them again. Nah, I think they get. Listen, I held my own against Voddie, and I would gladly talk with them again. I don't have any problem. I just think, I think those guys can't. This is what I think happens, right? I'm going to use a term, but it's not what I mean. I think, you know, the term wolf in sheep's clothing, where you're really like, I think they're sheep in wolves' clothing. I think they're really believers, but they're acting like wolves to get other believers to focus on them. It's like, who cares, fam? Like, I just don't care. Voddie's book, Fault Lines, a lot of it was trash, for real. So much of it was like, there had scriptures in it. Listen, you can't say because a book has scriptures in it, it's biblical. When it's biblical, it actually applies what the scriptures say. You can't just quote a verse and then because it has to apply. And when it's biblical, it can be applied anywhere Christians are. If what you're saying cannot be applied anywhere Christians are, it's not biblical, it's cultural. Fault lines and all that stuff, it's all cultural. That stuff is cultural. People in China would read that book and be like, what in the world are these people talking about? And again, that's context. But don't say it's biblical unless you can apply it everywhere. The stuff that I try to say, any believer can see it and believe it. That stuff is just cultural, and I think it's just meant to divide. It's cause division. You know what I'm saying? What's good, T Dizzle? You know what I'm saying? What's good? Word is both Voddie and Tim took the L. They did take the L. I mean, Voddie said that. Listen, I'm not even trying to boast. There were people made the video, oh, Voddie wiped Kurt Kennedy off the stage. Man, listen, bro. Let me tell you what really happened, right? So we're at Lancaster Bible, right? This is the honest to God truth. I tell no lies. Ask anyone who was there. Contact Wrath and Grace. Go back and watch the video for yourself. I don't know Wrath and Grace, but Voddie at halftime. So there was two halves of this debate. After the first half of the debate, Voddie, okay, I was sitting right here. Tim Brindle was over there, and Voddie was right beside me to my right. You had my man Strack was right across, and Vince Cooley was over there. They were the ones that moderating, asking questions. There was supposed to be another guy with me, but he said, it was supposed to be like me and him kind of not against, but like our opinion was different than Voddie and Tim. They were kind of united. And, but this guy told me the night before, bro, I can't come, man. I just can't do it. He said, I can't answer questions like you. I'm going to be offended, right? Because he really struggled with things. So I'm holding my own against Voddie and Tim. I'm answering questions. And there was stuff I agree with. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't me against them. I think they thought I was Black Lives Matter. Man, I couldn't stand those girls. I couldn't stand that movement in many ways. People called me woke only because I wouldn't 100% endorse either side. So both sides got mad at me. And I'm better for it. But Voddie at the halftime leaned over to me and said, hey, bro, you doing your thing. He said, the guy who ran Wrath and Grace at the time, he said his name. He said, he told me that you were like going to hold your own fault. He said, you doing your thing. Afterwards, Voddie said this. He said, bro, this is the best debate, a conversation I've had. And he was talking about, I've been everywhere. He said, I just came back from Shepherd's Conference, John MacArthur's joint. He said, this is the best discussion. And he told the dude who ran Wrath and Grace, he said, we need to do this and take this around the country. Let's get Curtly. Now, I wasn't with that. I was like, man, I'm not traveling. But Voddie gave me my props. The dude who owned the president of Lancaster Bible came up to me and shook me. He said, brother, I'm so glad you were here. Now, I'm not saying this to Bo. Voddie's a sharp dude. But I think everyone was expecting me to go in there. Like, I don't fear man like that. I don't care what you think of Voddie. I don't think that way. I mean, just a regular dude to me. So I just said what I said, and most people said, bro, you did your thing. So I'm not tripping off that. Whether they took the L or not, I wanted to represent what I thought was a balanced perspective, and that's what I did. Debate champ. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go there with it, we'll go there with it. Tim Brindle was in the politics big time nowadays. Yeah, I mean, that's apparently what I hear. To be honest, I haven't, since that debate 2 years ago, other things happen. I got a life to live, man. I'm not worried about that type of stuff, but apparently Tim is. William Smith, man, this is the most faithful subscriber I got, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. Like, I appreciate it, famo. Thank you, man. This dude's killing the game right here. Like the lights. Yeah, baby, we blew the night, baby. Said, I've been hearing this stuff has caused Shy and Tim to not be as cool as they were before. That's true, bro. I think their relationship is badly severed. And I think this is all I'm going to say. I think this album will further divide, I think, from what I understand. Unfortunately. I was talking to Shy last night, actually. Talking to him yesterday. So, yeah, they're definitely not what they were. My brother, another dude, my brother Rich. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Balance. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that, man. 100%, bro. Vipers and diapers. Man, this dude got balls. I love it. I agree. I agree. I'm disappointed in how Voddie slandered Eric Mason. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but I think I saw slander across the boardwalk, bro. I saw dudes. I mean, in all honesty, I watched dudes who've been friends for a long time just fall apart over this. I watched it come from both sides. So I don't. Voddie did say some stuff. I thought that was wrong. I'm sure Mace said stuff back. I mean, I think it was one side was wiping the other. So Voddie isn't again. He just believed it's not fitting in the church worship. So that's cool. That's fair. I don't. No offense, Erica. Please don't take this the wrong way. I don't really care what Voddie thinks about CHH. But I don't think it's fitting in the church. If you're talking about, I don't know what you mean by worship, right? Because worship. So you got Ephesians 5, right? Paul said this: sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, right? Now, Paul was thinking of, obviously, at that time, rap wasn't a issue, but I think I would consider rap to be a spiritual song if it's highlighting Christ and stuff like that. So I wrote a book called Does God Listen to Rap? You could check that out. But yeah, I might agree with Voddie that it's not fitting in a worship, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't have on a Sunday morning somebody come up and do a rap song. Rap it's a medium. It's an art form. It's not used for corporate worship. In that sense, I agree. But when we're talking about worship, well, worship is a lifestyle, right? 1 Corinthians 10:31, he says, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do all to the glory of God. Worship, we always talk about worship like it's the 30 or 40 minutes of singing before church starts. No, worship is what we're doing right now. How do you give glory to God while you're eating or drinking? How do you do that? Most of us don't even think about how to do that. How do you give glory to God watching a game or a movie that has nothing to do with Christ and him crucified? Right? So it's a worship style. So if you're talking about a musical context on a Sunday morning for corporate worship, CHH rap does not do that. If we're talking about worship as a lifestyle, rap very much can do that. And I've seen it change people's lives. I used to travel the country and watch these people singing songs and felt like, man, these are like mini sermons that are feeding my soul. So 100% Will Smith, like that, smash that like button. Stop playing with me. I'm over here freestyling. No script, no nothing, straight no chaser. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Kurt's cooking. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. There is a systematic persecution towards Christians that is coming from the Democratic Party, though. There's a systematic persecution that's coming for anyone that doesn't believe in Jesus. You think the Republicans care about the church? I just don't think so, Erica. And I'm not saying this, I've done my study, but that's not what this video is about. If you want to have that discussion with me, we can have it. But the Republicans do not care either. Everyone cares about power, the distribution of power. You are deceived. And I'm going to say this in a negative. I'm talking just broader than just you, Erica. But you are deceived if you think that one side cares more about Christ than the other. You're going to get persecuted from everyone who doesn't follow Jesus. You know why? Because when you care about power, you have to go where it sways. As the country starts changing and wants more and more of this, politicians got to agree with that. This man with Trump said he's not going to end women's right to choose. He said he wants to kick it back. He's backpedaling on a lot of that stuff. Like, it ain't just the Democrats. It's the Republicans. Jesus said, if you're not for me, you're not against. If you're not for me, you're against me. There is no in between. That's a American theological reality. The Democrats are just as evil as the Republicans, but the Democrats have different agendas and more evil perspective than what some Republicans demonstrate. But do not think that God is up there like, yeah, man, limited government and Second Amendment rights, man. I want my believers to have their guns. Man, there's so many things that the Republican platform has nothing to do with Jesus. Like, it's not just the Democrats. And even bigger than that, all who desire to live a godly life will be persecuted. Erica, that's not just the Democrats going to do that. The Republicans will persecute you if you believe in Christ, because they do not. They do not. I'm in bed listening to Drake's album while using my Rose tour. Okay, well, thanks for sharing with us, Mary. I'm proud of my sin. Well, please Please say that, Mary, when you're burning in hell. Make sure you recite that, because that's when it matters for real. Your sin, if you're proud of it, your sin will be proud of you. Satan loves you until he doesn't. So I wish you well, Mary, but I hope you turn and follow Jesus. By the way, bro, please assign some moderators. Nastiness tries. Yeah, thank you, Erica. I just saw that. I'm just going through. I'm just going through. Oh, man. Kurt secretly making the counter fault lines out. Nah, man. I'm so over that stuff, T-Dog, that I wouldn't even, yeah, I'm so over it. I wouldn't even do that, man. I don't even care, honestly. I just saw it and thought, oh, this is going to cause some division. Man, it's cutting. Thank you, bro. I hope it does flop. So whack. What do they hope to accomplish from this album? Lost more and more respect for them both. I respect Tim's brother. Yeah, I don't, yeah, do I hope it flops? I don't even care, man. I think it's going to flop because I think only the people who really care about it, I think a lot of people have just moved on. We went, oh, yeah, that's true. The concern, the Republic, man, who cares, man? Whatever. Proud of my sin. Oh, the irony. Yeah, Mary, will you also be proud of the yeah, thank you. See, I'm just catching this stuff. Which view do you hold to, Kirk Kennedy's Corner? I don't know what you mean. Which view are you talking about? Which view are you referring to? I seen the debate. Yeah. You seen the debate? Higher Club Deck Debate 2.0. Okay. Some Republicans do. Good. And Voddie is legit. Cool. I think, yeah, I don't think Voddie's not legit. I bang with it. I think there was a lot of good stuff he says. When we were in the debate, there were times I was like, I agree with him. There were times, listen, I don't have anything against Voddie. I think he's a solid brother. We don't agree on all things, but who's supposed to? Listen, you know what makes me laugh? This is what makes me laugh, right? People will get offended at you if you don't agree with some theologian, like Voddie's legit. And if I say, well, I don't agree with him, well, then you're just that's what, now I'm not saying you, Toothpick Grinch. I don't know who you are. I'm just saying in general. People will get mad like, well, you're just a leftist or whatever, right? Listen, you don't agree with everything your spouse says or your children says or your parents say. You don't agree with everything your boss wants or your coworkers want. But if you don't agree with somebody like that, then you're a man, get out of here. You get in conflicts with your spouse, whom you love more than any theologian, because you just disagree. Like, we used to be able to have differences of opinion. I think Voddie's legit in many ways. He's a brother in the Lord. I'm not going to say nothing different. But do I think that, like, everything he says in his platform? No. And he respected me. This dude told everyone, this dude is ridiculous. Oh, I forgot how he said it. I respected him. There was stuff he said. I don't got nothing against Voddie or Tim. I just think this particular idea, it's probably too little too late. They should have dropped this joint like last summer, 2 summers ago, last fall, when the book was cooking. Now, it's going to be like, really? So the people who love it and who just like that stuff, they'll be right back with it. But the rest of us, yawn. I wouldn't even get that. It's just not going to be, yeah, I'm not worried about it. But again, it's my opinion. It's my opinion. And you don't have to agree. But I don't think Voddie's not legit. I just don't think he's the voice of reason for all things. And I don't think Fault Lines presented a solid biblical treatise. I think the first few chapters with Voddie's background of why he doesn't fit the narrative, which was ironic, because him and Tim were both sharing stories of Tim's African black wife and Voddie growing up in South Central. But then one of their main arguments was all the stories that come out about police brutality are manufactured from the left, that they use stories to try to get influence. It's like, well, Voddie, in your book, you said, and many of you don't know my story either. And until you do, you won't That's your whole shtick, is that you're black from South Central and your narrative, your story doesn't come out with thinking that everybody's racist. Your story matters. Tim's story matters. But when you say I struggle with police or racism, oh, that's not a legitimate story. It was just hypocritical. And I think we all, listen, stories, our whole faith is based on belief in stories. Like, stories are one of the monumental ways. And this is what I mean. You're right. Voddie preaches gospel effectively. No one's saying that Voddie does not, and he calls out left ideology. I just think he called out stuff that's not biblical. So is there no right ideology? Is there no ideology of the right that is all the ideologies of the right are biblical? Toothpick Grinch, I don't know you, but you are theological. I'm sorry. I think you're theological instead of theological. If you're going to be biblical, then this is biblical. Here's calling out all things. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. Here's my problem. Since you said that, here's the problem with the left and the right. They only criticize the other side. If you're genuinely biblical, Jesus would criticize the Pharisees and his own disciples. Jesus called a Phoenician woman a dog. Oh my gosh. Jesus called a Phoenician woman a dog. He criticized wrong thinking. Jesus told Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." We have no exegetical reason to believe that Satan came into Peter like he did Judas. But Jesus was saying, because you deviate, the slightest deviation from the will of God is satanic. And that's the problem, Toothpick Grinch. Voddie does criticize left ideology, but where's the criticism of the right? That's my problem. Tim, where's the criticism of the right? No. It's Jesus that we elevate, not conservatism. And all the people on the left, where's the criticism of the left? I don't care how well Voddie preaches the guy. I don't care. You got to call out everything. Last thing from you, Toothpick Grinches. On this question, I'm hitting on, why do we need to call out from the right? Because of this verse. We expose the deeds of darkness. There's darkness on the right. And because our hope is in Jesus, not in conservative politics. That's why, Toothpick. We call out the right because they're wrong biblically. The right may make you feel more comfortable, but we're talking about what's biblical. We're going to be persecuted if we believe in Jesus, 2 Timothy 3:12. We call out the right because they're not right, biblically speaking. That's the problem. They care about preserving the nation. We care about persevering in Christ. That's the reason. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say, man. That's it, man. That's it. They are being susceptible to being theological. I think they are. I don't think they're being susceptible, Rich. I think they are theological. I just think they can't. Listen, if Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan," to Peter, who was basically saying, "No, Lord, you're not going to die. Far be it from you." If Jesus was saying that's wrong thinking, then how is focusing on immigration, limited government, the healthcare? But healthcare is ridiculous. Man, we could get into so many different conversations but I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing a treatise on conservative, and I'm not doing that. At least not right now. Maybe later on in the year when politics becomes more of an issue. Right now, I think the best thing, vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. If you're a card-carrying conservative, man, vote. Whoever's conservative, you're going to vote for. It could be Pusty McMichaels. That's who you're voting for. That's fine. If you want to vote Democrat, personally, I don't know how anybody could vote Democrat. That's just me. I don't know how anybody could, but I don't trust conservatives either. I just don't vote. I just don't vote. I don't know how anybody can trust any of these folks. But again, we live in a country where voting is there. Oh, if we don't vote, then, man, I trust. I'm not a hyper-Calvinist, but I do trust that God sovereignly works through all these things. And my vote, I don't need to vote. I live in a blue state anyway. They're gonna give the electoral. That's a whole different conversation. But I'm not even getting into the electoral votes. I'm not even getting into all that stuff. Because once you get to 270, you win regardless. In certain states, that's why you know what they have called swing states? Because those states may vote either way. But most of the country's already decided on who they're voting. Who's getting the electoral college votes? Blue states are going to give them to the Democrats, red to the Republicans. It's those few states that could go either way. That's where they campaign. That's where they go to, like Michigan. They go to Tennessee. They go to Vermont. They go to these states. This is a swing state. This is a big, because that state may go either way. But most of the country, it's more electoral college than it is popular vote anyway. People just be tripping to me. But anyway, what am I talking about? I'm getting off. This was supposed to be just a quick rant, and y'all got me out here for an hour. But I appreciate y'all. Thank you, man. I just felt like saying something. I might not even put a real thumbnail up. I just was reading something and said, you know what, man, I'm going live. Appreciate y'all. I'm out of here. Grace and peace.